I'd like to call to order the February 8th, 2022 regular meeting of the Everett Public Schools Board of Directors to order. We will start by the closed caption disclaimer. We are providing closed caption for our meeting. Please note the disclaimer being displayed on the screen at this time. Thank you very much. Director Nichols, would you please provide the land acknowledgement?
We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Coast Salish, Snohomish, and Tulalip peoples. We express our deepest respect and gratitude to the ancestors of this land, on whose shoulders we stand. In Everett Public Schools, we strive to create equitable outcomes and build a culture of inclusive belonging for all students, teachers, staff, and community.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome. And I also welcome those that are visiting us through Zoom. Will the secretary please call the roll?
President Lassane.
Present.
Vice President Mitchell.
Present.
Director Nichols.
Present.
Director Mason.
Present.
Director Berg.
Probably on mute.
Director Berg, you're on mute.
We can see her on Zoom.
Right. Director Berg is attending via Zoom tonight. Student Representative Pilch-Basson.
Present.
Student Representative Colley.
Present.
I don't have audio.
Now you do.
We hear you.
Now you do, yeah. Oh, April can't hear us.
Okay. We can hear you once you're off mute.
No, she can't hear us.
Okay. Okay. We're looking into getting that fixed for Director Berg, who is on Zoom. I understand she cannot hear us at this time, so we're going to continue to work on that.
Okay, he said it's good, so go ahead.
Our first item of business is the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Salzman, will you introduce tonight's agenda for us?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, Board of Directors, and to our public. Good evening. Tonight's agenda contains the following: a segment for recognitions, the superintendent's report, a segment for board comments, a segment for public comments, a segment for routine business, a segment for information and discussion, a segment for new business, and upcoming agenda items. Since publishing the agenda, the following change was made to the agenda. Item 8.01, the superintendent's report, the presentation was added. Item 10.02, approval of the personnel report, the report was updated. Item 12.01, budget development update, the presentation was updated. Item 15.02, regular meeting, March 8th, 2022, the meeting content was updated. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Salzman. Is there a motion for the adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Mason and seconded by Director Nichols to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll proceed to the vote. All those in favor say aye. Those
Aye.
Aye. Director Berg, can you still hear us? No, she can't hear us yet. All those opposed, say no. The agenda is adopted. Do you think we should we then try and call, okay, he's, one, if, she can't
We have
hear
a
us.
quorum. We have a quorum.
We have a quorum, yes. We'll continue because we do have a quorum. Our next section is section 6.0, which is recognitions of the 2022 Prodigies for Peace competitions. I understand Dr. Lancaster will be coming up to do the presentation.
Well, this is a really exciting night. We have a bunch of our young students next door here to be recognized tonight.
Try again.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Very well. We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Oh,
They can hear you.
through Jared's phone, I can hear you, sort of, yeah.
Very well.
Is there a number I can just dial into?
Jamie, do we have the dial-in for the Zoom?
Yeah, I'm finding it for you.
So it started to come back. Pam said, I mean, is it actually?
All right. Well, tonight we're here to recognize our Prodigies of Peace Award recipients. So this year on January 16th, the Snohomish County Black Heritage Committee and the NAACP held a community celebration honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Black History Month. As part of the celebration, students were invited to submit essays and art for the 21st annual Prodigies of Peace competition. This contest helped students draw connections between the people and the events that shaped the civil rights movement and the social issues that influence their lives today. It's really important that we take a minute to note that this contest has always been spearheaded by Judge Eric Lucas and his wife Beth. Judge Lucas passed away last fall, and the students we are recognizing tonight are honoring his memory as well as the memory of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I would like to offer a sincere thanks and recognize Mrs. Lucas, who is joining us through Zoom, for continuing this important work with us. We are especially proud of the principals, teachers, and families for supporting their efforts to help these young prodigies express their vision for peace. And the definition of the word prodigy helps provide some context for this award. The dictionary defines prodigy as a person, especially a young person, having an extraordinary talent or something wonderful or marvelous, a wonder. Something wonderful or marvelous, a wonder. So we have a brief video showcasing the extraordinary talent, and this, I think you will clearly see something marvelous and wonderful from the 21 students who we are here to recognize tonight. So I'm going to show this video. right, so there's some great representation from our artists and our authors. And next, Aisa Moody is going to come up and introduce some of our young guests here tonight.
Hello. I'd like to start with the students who are in attendance here. First, we have Carolyn Zhang, a 6th grade student at Gateway Middle School, first place for essay.
Just a minute, they're just coming in. Perfect. So when she calls your name, you guys come up here and I'll help you find a place to stand, okay? You want to start it in?
We have Carolyn Zhang, a 6th grader at Gateway Middle School for first place in essay.
Do you want to hand those?
Can they just stand up in front of here so their parents can take pictures?
You can take a picture, just
Yeah.
face the crowd.
Get somewhere your parents can see you. Get away from the owl.
We have a Manat
Stay here.
Segal, 3rd grader at Mill
here.
Creek
Stay here.
Elementary, first place for essay. We have Princeton McKinday, 2nd grader at Mill Creek Elementary, first place for essay.
I want to make sure parents can see these little heads though. Above the desks.
We have Vivon Rajan, 5th grader at Tambart Creek, 3rd place for essay and 1st place for art.
That's all our smiles.
We have Manas Jin, 1st grader at Forest View, 1st place for art.
But hold those up so your mom can take your picture. Got her phone up.
Leonel Jin, 1st grader at Forest View, 1st place for art.
Look over at your parents. They got their phone out.
Leonel here?
Leonel Jenny? Austin Guan, 2nd grader at Mill Creek Elementary, 2nd place for art.
Turn around so Dad can take your picture.
Jag Ubriani, 3rd grader at Mill Creek Elementary, 3rd place for art.
We're proud of you guys.
Brooklyn Leach, 1st grader at Whittier, honorable mention for art. Kyra Rajan, kindergartner at Tambart Creek, honorable mention for art. Violet Jin, 3rd grader at Mill Creek, honorable mention for art. And joining us via Zoom, we have a Gabriel, 5th grader at Emerson, 3rd place for their essay. Akshay Gadamseti, 6th grader at Gateway Middle School, 3rd place for essay. Amen Albachu, a 2nd grader at Mill Creek Elementary, honorable mention for art. Sage Medendorp, 3rd grader at Mill Creek Elementary, honorable mention for art. And Arshan Jarami, 3rd grader at Mill Creek Elementary, honorable mention for art. Not able to make it, we have Sahasra Kalvakunta, 6th grade at EVA, 3rd place for essay. And Adi Duvuri, 2nd grader at Mill Creek Elementary, 3rd place for art. Tucker Fine, 3rd grader at Mill Creek Elementary, honorable mention for art. And Kalia Park, 7th grader at Gateway Middle School, 2nd place for art.
Take a picture with the board.
Can we just celebrate, like clap our hands first really quick?
I would like to say congratulations to all of our prodigies here. Thank you so much. Well, I'm not sure if you can hear me. I'm trying.
We're also going to send you the picture. Okay? All right. Let's go to the other side, Tara, so you can be in it a little bit. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Congratulations, all of our
Okay, ready?
prodigies.
Look at all the phones.
1, 2, 3. Nice job. Okay, let's get a couple of parent photos if we need them.
Got lots of parents.
Lots of parents.
One more. All
Everybody's
right,
done.
thank you guys.
They all left.
Great job, everybody. Great job.
Congratulations, and it's truly wonderful to be in an education and environment that helps students draw the connection between the people and the events that shape the civil rights. And we must remember and learn and grow, lest we forget the struggle and the historical relevance and the harm which was placed on individuals who are a part of the fabric of America. In our journey to create a better union, we cannot forget the past, lest we're bound to repeat it. Thank you, students, for your essays and for your artwork. Thank you, teachers and parents, for your work in guiding these prodigies. Thank you so much. And it's kind of interesting that it's the 21st annual event that Everett has had, and there were 21 students as well. I mean, there's a connection there. I mean, so that's pretty slick. I really enjoyed that. Thank you. We'll now move on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Zolfin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Board of Directors, and to the public. First of all, again, to our students and to our parents, amazing work, and it was wonderful to see all the parents here tonight with the youngsters, so great job. This week is Counselor Appreciation Week. Our school counselors do amazing work every day. They play such a huge role in contributing to the student wellness and success. There are several things planned this week to recognize them and their hard work that they do every day, so I want to thank the team for that. And I personally want to thank them for all what they do for our students, and especially the past 2 years when our students need us the most. So thank you, counselors across the district. We appreciate you. February is Black History Month. We know Black history is more than just a month, but it is acknowledged every February. One great way to recognize is the amazing students that were just recognized for Prodigies for Peace participation. I want to let the public know and staff know that our website has a variety of resources regarding cultural awareness and teaching resources related to Black History Month, and I ask you to engage in those. February is also CTE Month. This is a month to help raise awareness of the role career and tech ed has in preparing students for career and college. Our CTE programs prepare students with technical, academic, and 21st century skills for success in the workplace and further education by ensuring that all, and I mean all students, have opportunities to explore in-demand career pathways. Last Saturday, I had the privilege to attend a robotics competition, and I also saw Dr. Lancaster there, and I watched the Eisenhower students compete. Boy, do they work hard, and it truly showed. They did an amazing job. And I want to take this time to recognize their coach, who she must have roller skates on her feet, because she had two groups going back and forth, and she was smiling the whole time, and it was just wonderful. So Ann Gamach, who's the teacher at Eisenhower and the sponsor of robotics, kudos to you. And to our principal, Wilnick Gideon, the principal of Eisenhower, thank you. I truly enjoyed that day with the youngsters and was very proud of them. I wish everybody great success and great joy today and every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Salsa. We'll now move to section 8.0, which is our board comments. At this time, we're going to open the floor up for board members to provide some comments. Well, let's start with April Berg. We're going to ensure that you can hear us and we can hear you.
Thank you so much, Madam President. And I can hear you just fine. Thank you to the amazing tech team down there at the CRC for getting everything sorted out. I am so sorry to be not in person there tonight because you had some amazing visitors. So I am excited that once again, we've had these amazing, philosophers and just artists and all of it coming together around MLK's vision and dream that leads us right into Black History Month. But I just wanted to share tonight that, I really miss kind of normal, but I'm excited that I'm seeing more normal happen, and just being able to view what's happening in the boardroom tonight is a little bit of it. So even though folks are masked up and being safe, it seems just wonderful to have small voices in that really big boardroom. I just wanted to say, this is the beginning of Black History Month, and I always talk to folks about, looking deeper than MLK quotes that make you feel good during this month. And so I'm challenging all of our parents and students out there to really dig deep into different Black philosophers, writers, artists, and of course MLK, to some of the quotes that sometimes make us a little uncomfortable, but are a really good mirror into the society that we are. So I'll just leave you on that note, and I am just excited that everybody is back in that boardroom and looking really, really good. And sorry I'm not there.
Thank you very much, Director Berg. Let's move back into the boardroom. Director Mitchell, do you have any comments?
Oh yes, thank you. I'm going to admit to a little bit of FOMO. I think it's been a long time since any of us have felt FOMO, but because I'm working so hard at home and traveling again, to see the schools and Dr. Saltzman and all the leadership here posting, to Director Berg's point, it does look like school again. We do have masks on, but the Legos, the basketball, the different events, iReady, all the support, the pictures of Pajama Day, everybody at Emerson getting shirts, I think. I just wish I could be at all 7 schools all the time. And it's complete FOMO. But I appreciate staying on Facebook and Twitter, and I like it all. This is Heart Month, Women's Heart Month. So please exercise, eat right, and take care of the women in your lives. The next thing is that while WASDA is requiring us to learn diversity and inclusion, and the school district is really focusing on diversity and inclusion, the state legislature also wants healthcare people to have diversity and inclusion. So I'm getting a whole lot of education right now. But I want to speak specifically to the University of Texas at Austin Pharmacy School, where they just, I think, brought things that I think could help us. They actually added an A to DE and I, so made it DEAI, AEAI, with accessibility, really being that adding accessibility in there, that it is sort of part of that diversity of people with disabilities. And then also anti-racism. And they have an entire curriculum at their school doing this, but really told us to interrogate ourselves, to Director Berg's point too, and learn and feel and be challenged. The other thing that they try to do is they call it radical belonging, a concerted effort to accept the voices and presence of all and shift to make sure everyone feels included, that there is not needed a sense to assimilate, that you should be included because of who you are and how you dress and how you look. They also said they're shifting from assimilation groups that are faculty-centric or student-centric to being cross-centric, so that there's faculty, staff, and student affinity groups, as well as faculty and faculty affinity groups, so that you can hear those voices from all. The other thing that they do too is that they mentor down to, they have a program for the pharmacy students to participate if they wish to mentor down to second graders to teach them STEM. And so I'm wondering if with our nursing programs in the area, with our pharmacy school at the UW, but there's a lot of students there that live in Snohomish County, maybe if there are some opportunities there. Their goal, because they have HBCUs and they have a Latino college, Hispanic college, historical, they can pull from that because where they are in Austin. We don't really have that here, but it is just sort of, I just really felt it really, really meaningful for how a pharmacy school could really look like our K-12 schools here and maybe bring some stuff here. So thank you.
Director Mitchell, Director Nick.
I thought you were saying this. I thought you were inviting me again.
I don't have any specific quotes this evening, but Rep. Berg reminded me of some one of my favorite authors, James Baldwin, and he's got some amazing quotes that I think really, he had this amazing ability to talk about things in a way that was all at once relatable, like you knew it, but so global and so it's the macro and the micro at the same time. But I'll leave you with two quotes of his. And they're both about history. So American history is longer, larger, more various, more beautiful, and more terrible than anything anyone has ever said about it. And that just means there's so many perspectives that we can't know. And there's so much to our country that is beautiful. But then he also said this: I love America more than any other country in this world, and exactly for this reason, I insist on the right to criticize her perpetually. And that to me is kind of sums up the beauty of America and the beauty of the system we have here, and something that I tend to focus on, especially around this time of year. So,
Thank you very much, Director Nichols. Director Mason, would you have any comments for us?
I do, thank you. I also wanted to congratulate all our Prodigies of Peace winners. It was great to have students in the boardroom again, and I get very emotional when I read the little words from second graders and first graders and their understanding of and their vision for our world. It does definitely make you feel a little more hopeful. And it was cool to see students from Everett Virtual Academy. I think that's a first for us. So that was really fun too. I did have an opportunity to participate at a booster clinic a couple weeks ago. I got to meet the infamous Carrie Johnson. She is our incredibly energetic, passionate, and committed health services supervisor. She is an amazing individual. She rallies the troops. We had Seattle visiting nurses there providing the pokes and arms, and I'm just so very appreciative, in addition to the cute little box of Band-Aids tonight. Thank you, nurses. And then lastly, I can't ignore, it is election night. We have worked very hard to spread information about the two levies and what they mean to our students and our families and our community. And I'm looking forward to some celebrating after 8 p.m. tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Mason. Student Representative Pilch-Passon, do you have any comments for us tonight?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've been thinking about as like a reflection on Black History Month, I feel like the last 2 years, especially when things were virtual, was a time when it was a lot easier to step outside of like societal things that are very normalized and adopt maybe like different views that make you uncomfortable, or dig deeper into understanding uncomfortable topics because there was less pressure from like people around you physically. So there was more space to explore. So I feel like as we go back to this idea of normal, it's like my focus this month is to remember and make sure that I'm continuing to incorporate the things that I was learning when things weren't normal. I feel like it's really easy to hear offhanded comments and not say something in person when there's something that is like an example of injustice happening in person. And it was a lot easier to recognize and to sort of react to those things when it wasn't in person, when it takes a little bit more courage to do that in person. So I think just remembering lessons that were learned, and ways that you were able to explore your own beliefs and your own understandings of the world, when the world was kind of flipped upside down, remembering to keep incorporating those things. And then just to echo what Director Mason said about election night tonight, this is my last year as a student in Everett Public Schools, but it would be really heartbreaking to see it go in a direction where there wouldn't be as many resources for students who are going to be here in years to come. So hoping that I can end my year on a positive night. So I'm excited for tonight.
Thank you very much, Student Rep Pilson. We'll now move to Student Rep Colley. Would you like to provide any comments this evening?
Yeah, we have been adjusting to the second semester. It's definitely been a very long semester coming back to school and everything. And Cascade has done a really good job of recognizing and honoring Black History Month. Mm-hmm. We have collages set around the school where you can take pictures and send it into Cascade's Instagram to be featured with Black philosophers and different quotes. So it's been really good to see that it's getting recognized around schools and seeing that people can find something they can go to and relate to learn more about during Black History Month.
True. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I just want to remind anybody that's out there, if you have yet to turn in your ballots, you have 2.5 hours still to get them in a drop box. Please, please, if you haven't done so, please take the time, get in your car, go out to a drop box and drop that ballot off. Since the last board meeting, we had the opportunity to attend the WASA and the WASBO legislative conference virtually. And it was really great this year. One of the guest speakers provided a topic on which we seek to listen and seek to understand individuals. We were coming from 2 years of rather, I guess you would say, challenging times, where I don't believe too many people were seeking to understand someone. And so that was a great topic for discussion. Our legislative conferences continue to focus in on things like, the enrollment declining as a result of pandemic, transportation concerns, staffing shortages, social emotional needs of our families. Even though this is not a budget year for the state, to be able to talk to our legislature in a large forum as a body of educators or student board members or administrators is very, very important, because our issues are the ones that concern students and how families provide the necessary resource for those students. And it was really great to be able to sit there and understand what are the things that the school board is very involved in ensuring that the resources for our students are received at the school district level. So it was very good that we had the opportunity during this past weekend to be able to sit there and find out as a group what are the issues that are concerned us, and how should we speak with the legislature, and how should we communicate with those who represent us. So that was very good. One of the good things that I found out from Director Mason, because of some of her work, was that House Bill 1226, which is a simple majority for bonds, passed out of the House Educational Committee. I mean, it still has a struggle to get through all the other committees, get passed by the House, and get passed, there's still more to go, but at least it made it out of the Educational Committee.
So I just add an update. I'm sure Director Berg can as well. Okay. So today was the cutoff for bills to be voted out, and there was no vote on the bill. So as of today, I believe it is dead unless Director Berg has additional.
It's, I don't believe it's dead. It is NTIB, which is necessary to implement the budget because it has a budgetary component. So it's on it'll be in the fiscal committee of capital budgets next.
Okay.
Positive news. It's
It is.
not dead.
It is. I was able to provide additional testimony yesterday on the bill for both WASDA and our district.
So it's not dead yet. So it still has a struggle, uphill battle to go, but it is progressing in a positive direction. And the reason why I brought that up is it's the election night. And as I mentioned at the beginning, you have 2.5 hours to get those ballots in the drop box. Please don't put them in your mailbox. Mail has already been picked up for the evening. But if you take it to the drop box, you have an opportunity there to support the levy. So thank you. No further ado, we'll move on to the next section, which is section 9.0. 9.0 is our public comments. The school board specifically sets aside this time during the regular meeting to hear from our constituents. We do this because we value public input and want to hear and understand the perspectives that the public brings to the table. Dr. Saltzman, are there any requests from comments from our audience?
Not at this time.
Thank you. We will therefore move to the next item on the agenda, which is our consent agenda. Dr. Saltzman, would you provide an introduction to the consent agenda?
Yes, and before I read the consent agenda, just going back to my previous report, I want to thank Kim Griggs, who helped me with directions to robotics and was helped there supporting the youngsters. So kudos to Kim Griggs for being there on Saturday as well. She really helped out a great deal. Thank her. And thank you. Consent agenda. Thank you, Madam Chair, Board of Directors, and to the public. The board's consent agenda includes repetitive business items such as meeting minutes, personnel actions, expense vouchers, surplus lists, gifts, and grants and recurring contracts. Sometimes it includes items that occur less frequently but are of a routine business nature. These items are usually reviewed by the board in the Friday report, 1 or more weeks before the board meeting. This gives directors time to ask staff questions or to consider a discussion about the policy implications of those items. The board votes on the consent agenda in a single motion. By its definition, a consent agenda is not debatable. In the case of this consent agenda, the superintendent's office received and answered one question regarding the vouchers. The consent agenda is presented as published for board approval.
Thank you, Dr. Saltzman. A motion to adopt the consent agenda is in order.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Director Mitchell and seconded by Director Nichols. To approve the consent agenda, does any director wish to remove an item from the consent agenda and place it into new business section of the agenda? Hearing no requests, we'll proceed to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries. The consent agenda is approved. We'll now move to section 11.0, which is strategic progress monitoring. There are no strategic progress monitoring reports scheduled for this evening. We'll move to the information and discussion section. During this portion of the meeting, we'll be seeing a budget development update, and I see our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Jeff Moore, is already at the podium.
Thank you so much, President Lassane. Let me get this. Good evening, President Lassane, board members, Dr. Saltzman. It is a high energy night and very much excited about the way it began and what we may touch on later. But I'm also equally excited about this, the status of our budget, because this is a year where we're not in front of you considering reductions across the board. We're not here to seek input on that process. We're more trying to provide tonight just a quick snapshot on where we are in the budget development process. So I'm going to talk about our outlook. I'm going to talk about the timeline to tell you where we are, our enrollment projections for next year's, and then we're going to remind us and our community and our constituents and how enrollment drives staffing. And then I think we've already spoke to one bill, but there's a couple other major bills out there that are still in legislative action that we want to review. So the good news is we continue in your consent agenda. You have the December 3rd, 31st financial report, and we still continue to see strong fund balance management, and we expect to be at 9.2% at the end of the year. That in and of itself protects us from having to consider cuts for the 2022-23 school year. And we do know we are utilizing fund balance, but we also know that the state revenue picture continues to look forward. So while in December we projected at the end of next year to be at 6.2%, we think it's going to be more favorable, and we'll update you at the end of March on what that new projection is based upon legislative outcomes, et cetera. As I mentioned, the big bills in there are the enrollment stabilization and the prototypical schools model adjustment. I'll talk about those in a bit. And as I mentioned, we do not require reductions. We also have the capacity built in to initiate what is really driving changes to our budget, and that's our strategic action plans. And I know that team and you are getting special sessions on how they're developing those costs. So how does that all fit into the picture? This diagram is a little more simplified than the one I traditionally use, but on the top line, it's showing what's going on. It's showing, I don't know if you call it the sausage being ground, but it's pretty complex when we take our enrollment consultants' projections. We do our internal budget analysis, and that engages our principals. It engages people in the organization that are trying to get a sense of what we think is going to happen in our buildings. We do have the principals review them, and I'll show you a diagram in a bit about analyzing staff attrition. But we're leading up to that point of time where down below the line, where HR and the budget team are developing our building staff allocations. And once we put them out there in the system, they can begin to build master schedules. And therefore, our schools are getting aligned for how they're going to operate next year. Concurrent with that, when you look internally, in December, I spoke to you about our ESSER expenditures, and I mentioned that we have a process engaged right now where all of our program and budget leaders are looking at not only what they have spent this year, but what they anticipate spending. And that will allow us to know what the resources are available for next year. In a similar way, the fate of these bills that provide additional funding can also free up more ESSER funding for the next year too. So that's going to go on up until about the middle of March, and we'll be able to update you again. As I mentioned, I think it's March 25th. Concurrently, I mentioned the strategic action costs that are being developed as well. So we're on a really strong path to move forward. Here are ASB students in May. We'll have a chance to have students in the audience again and look towards a first reading of the operating budget in July. It's March 22nd. I have it right there. Our enrollment projection. We've taken a look and worked internally. Remember, Mr. Gunn is going to be here at the March 8th meeting to talk about the big picture of enrollment. Internally, we're looking at what we're going to see for next year, and we planned an overall decrease of 31 students. It's similar to our neighboring districts. And it's not that we think students are going to leave, it's just the students coming in are a little fewer than the students that may be leaving. Where we see the big change is in middle school. You can see right down here. You can see that the main reason is we had a large 8th grade class move into 9th grade, and we had a smaller 6th grade class come in, and collectively we see the decrease in that particular area. When we start to look at back to that diagram of going forward, one of the most important process after we do our building staffing is the Human Resources Department, with our support and budget, takes a look at the attrition analysis, the people that are coming back from leave, leaving from leave, and that helps us identify the number of vacancies we need for hiring. And so the enrollment accuracy is really critical to that, and we look forward to getting to the point of identifying where we need additional staff going forward into next year. And then finally, these are the 4 bills that still have a particular significance. I know we mentioned 1226, and that, of course, would be a benefit to our capital fund and our future bond efforts. 1732, we know it was signed into law on January 27th by the governor, and that was delaying for 18 months our long-term care services. We were able to hold off on payroll for that month, and accordingly our staff were not impacted, and we do not have to do refunds. And we think it was wonderful that the legislature expedited this, and the governor passed the bill and signed it into law, and that it can spend some time to find a bill or a process that makes sense. 1590 and 5563, those are the enrollment stabilization funding amounts, and it would basically allow our funding for this particular year to be at our 2019-20 level, which is about 570 students more. It would generate about 6 to 7 million that would again free up those ESSER funds that we can use to continue to support services. And also the next 2 bills down there, in addition, those 2 bills have a component within them that are relative to levy and LEA. And districts are trying to make sure the legislature, and I look to Representative Berg, that they are able to maintain the bill status for those 2 elements if the actual funding for enrollment stabilization ends up being in the NTIB, as she mentioned, the necessary to implement the budget. We don't want to leave behind the levy and the LEA for those districts who need them. And then finally, 5326, it is requiring school districts, it's sponsored by Senator Robinson, it's requiring school districts to provide benefits through state funding to bus drivers who are contracted, such as Everett. And so it would appear to be cost neutral, but we're watching that as we begin to consider a new contract in the long term. So in a nutshell, that's where we are. We feel strong about the future, and we look forward to being back on March 22nd to provide you an update on where we are.
Are there any questions for Mr. Moore? Director Mason, you have a question?
I do. I'm just curious, is everything that I've been reading about some of these bills that you've highlighted is the legislator is having very optimistic revenue forecasts right now, and although it is a short session, it does appear that they may be willing to move forward with some of these, passing some of these bills, including things like revamping the prototypical school formula, especially for nurses.
Mm-hmm.
So that would actually increase our revenue in the coming year. And of course, we can't count on it at this point, but how do we guarantee that if some of these things were to happen, that we're not going to end up with close to a 12% fund balance at the end of the year if there were changes in our revenue stream?
That is an interesting question, and it's complex. When we look at the particular, I would say we have the choice, the easiest and most direct answer, we have the choice of sustaining on how we invest ESSER funds for a whole nother year. And so we can work within the state funding assumptions, utilize our fund balance to spend it down, which we believe we will when we bring it to you. And what we can do is then retain those ESSER funds into yet a third year to provide additional supports that aren't there for the students.
And remind me, the ESSER 3, when's the expiration of those usage? Is that at the end of?
It is at the end of 23-24.
Okay. So I understand what you said.
Yeah, there's a whole nother
okay.
year, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Uh-huh.
And I just have one question.
Yes, Director Mitchell.
The slide about the budget enrollment projections, I think when we were talking about the high school, we were seeing sort of a plateau that was going to start 23, 24 in the high schools. Is that what we're seeing potentially here? Is that leading to potentially a plateau?
I think that might be better addressed at the next meeting on the long-range projection. This particular is really looking at the roll-ups.
Snapshot,
And it's
okay.
looking at who graduated, who came in, and making assumptions. So, and it's also probably in the mid-range of when Mr. Gunn talks about the high projection and the low projections. It's in the middle. It's conservative, but it's realistic in terms of staffing our building.
Okay, thank you.
Any bills that are signed and are approved, or, certified this year, we would not see any monetary benefit until the following year, correct?
No, that's not correct. The
Okay.
enrollment stabilization bill is focused on this year.
On this year.
And also the LEA component of that. The levy component is to remember that this year's staffing drives the 23 levy. So yes, there is funding that would result this year, and then our levy for 2023 would be governed by a higher number.
Okay, gotcha.
Mr. Moore, can you take the presentation down so we can see Director Berg?
Oh, I am so sorry.
I was just thinking, in case she has questions or
Yes.
comments.
Okay.
Director Berg?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say thank you for the presentation. I think Mr. Moore did it perfectly. I think I am concerned about the fund balance being a little bit maybe too padded, but we're going to gavel out by March 10th. So you'll know for sure what some of those bills do in terms of financing. So hopefully that helps.
I think one example is that we have made the allocation models richer for next year in terms of staffing in our building, so that there's not a reduction for 120 that again will rebuild in the following year. So we are certainly cognizant of that, and we'll do so before we come back.
Understood.
Madam President, I have one question.
Yes.
I guess, Mr. Moore, if we do get additional revenue from the state to enhance those prototypical school funding models, would it be possible to keep our current staffing ratios and simply enhance them? I mean, I guess what I'm saying is no matter what happens, it's not going to be enough, right? We're still going to want more adults in school. So could we just take that and enhance what we're already doing?
We'll certainly take that into consideration, and that's a broad statement. If you're talking specific to nurses, social workers, psychs, and counselors, we have some of them funded out of ESER, so we'll place that. And those resources get redistributed because, as you know, Representative, they need to stay within that funding group and fund those individuals, but it frees up levy dollars or other resources that can, yes, then begin to make our school staffing richer.
For supplemental. Thank you so much.
And aside from having the funding to have those people in our schools, they're hard to find right now too. So we'll have to take that into consideration on spending.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Student reps, do you have any questions for Mr. Barr? Director Nichols? Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Very much,
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Moore. Our next is to move to section 13.0, which is unfinished business. There is no unfinished business scheduled for this meeting. We'll move right on to section 14.0. And 14.01 is the appointment of the student board representative, appointment of the board representative to the Student Representative Selection Committee. Is that correct, or am I out of place?
You're in the right place.
You're correct.
Okay, gotcha. If we, and this is to open the floor up to all the directors. The past board representative in 2021 was Director Mitchell when she helped select the student representative. In 2020, it was Director Nichols. In 2019, it was Jamyar Yankar. He's not here right now, but In 2018, it was myself. So we have had one director who has requested to present, be the representative from the board for the selection of the student rep, which will be coming from Everett High School this year, and that is Director Mason. But I would like to open the floor up for comments. Director Mason.
Yeah, I would like to put my name forward on behalf of the board. It has been some time since I had an opportunity to meet with student representatives and really enjoyed the process. And as a former Everett High parent, I always look for opportunities to get back to Everett High and would certainly like to speak with some of those students.
Always good.
Well, I will say this is I think a coveted position, and since my name is on there twice at what I'm looking for, I will definitely support Caroline wanting to do it, just with a little bit of FOMO. It was nice seeing you on Zoom. One thing I did when we were talking about this is if it's possible to do it face to face, because when I met you on Zoom and you walked in the building, I really had no idea what you look like. And so it is just so different, this face-to-face thing. Mm-hmm. I can see you across here, it's so much better. But if you can safely do it face-to-face, I think it is a treasure.
Director Berg, do you have any comments?
I agree that Director Mason would be a fabulous choice. Her connection to Everett is everything. And so I am excited about her entering that process.
Any comments, Director Nichols? It is very true to have that connection to the particular school that it's important. And I do remember the time that I did it with Cascade High School a couple years back. And you have that connection because you've seen some of the kids around the campus, you've seen the staff and the teachers, and that's very important. But it's always great to get back into high school. It is truly, you miss it after a while. And I do understand that Director Mason has missed it for a while. So I think she would be a great asset. And let's see, do we at this time, can we just do by general consent an agreement that our representative, board representative for student representative selection would be Director Mason? By general consent, is that okay? Yep. Very well. Thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to the opportunity.
Okay, we shall now move to section 14.02, which is our policies. And I see that Mr. Fleckenstein is already available and there. Policy 2325, and you shall introduce the rest.
Well, good evening. To begin, policy 2325 is proposed for deletion at the recommendation of legal counsel. Policy 2325 and policy 4322, public performances, have the same title and nearly identical language, and more than one version of this policy in your portfolio is not needed. Revisions have been reviewed by legal counsel and superintendent's executive cabinet.
Sounds good. We shall move this. Are there any questions and comments from the directors? Very well. We shall move this to the second reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Second this evening is revisions to policy 5320.8. The proposed revisions are from WASDA and include language related to the Governor's Proclamation 2114 requiring K-12 staff to be vaccinated against COVID-19 or obtain a medical or religious exemption. Revisions would address the possibility of staff returning from leave that would still need to comply with the Governor's vaccine mandate. Once the mandate is over, this policy revision becomes moot, but will need to remain until the mandate ends. Revisions have been reviewed by legal counsel and the superintendent's executive cabinet.
Are there any questions by the board? Student rep? We shall move this to second reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Third this evening is revisions to policy 6220. The proposed revisions are the result of findings from the district's 2021-22 local agency procurement review and are recommended by OSPI based on federal regulations that are not currently referenced in our policies and procedures. Revisions have been reviewed by legal counsel and the superintendent's executive cabinet.
Are there any questions by the board? I do have one question, and it centers around crimes against children. If the section, please clarify, if there are any contracts for services within those particular organizations, there were individuals that may have a record established with crimes against children, they cannot then work the contract, correct? Is that how it is written? It says
that particular language is not under revision this evening, and so I'm not prepared to answer that question. I'd be happy to get that information for you.
But the current way it is written, it says employees' employment and who has pled guilty to or have been convicted of any federal crime, they cannot work the contract, that particular individual, correct?
Yes,
is that how you would read
if
that?
convicted, the contractor would prohibit an employee who had been convicted to work in the public school setting yes.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yep. And then finally this evening, revisions to policy 6230. Like policy 6220 presented earlier, the proposed revisions to policy 6230 are the result of findings from the district's 2021-22 local agency procurement review and are recommended by OSPI based on federal regulations that are not currently referenced in our policies and procedures. These revisions have been reviewed by legal counsel and the superintendent's executive cabinet.
I just have one question. Is like if we were going out for a contract, do then the people that are involved with it have to sort of attest that they don't have any conflicts of interest versus us proactively, staff having to proactively upon hire or annually state their conflicts of interest? So it is situational. Everybody, I see you're nodding, Jeff, that everybody involved, I don't have a relationship with the YMCA, or I don't have a relationship with this Teamsters union, or I don't have a relationship there.
I can speak to what I am familiar with. So in the process of a bid and its review for contracts, as a reviewer, which I have been a part of RFP processes before, I have to disclose and sign that I have no conflicts of interest in that process.
Okay.
So like a reviewer, like somebody who is also, we have to disclose that prior to participation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we can move this to second reading.
Thank you.
Director Berg, do you have any questions?
I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Sometimes I'm not sure if I can hear you when the screen goes blank. So I just want to make sure I can hear you.
I'll make sure to yell, so no worries.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. We'll now move to let's see, which section is this on? Section 15. Dr. Salzman, what's planned in our upcoming agenda items and meetings?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Board of Directors, and the public. At the February 15th special meeting, the Board agenda will contain the Strategic Progress Monitoring Session 2. At our regular meeting on March 8th, 2022, the following is planned. 5 policies for second reading, recognition of the Everett PTSA Council, enrollment outlook, January financial report, board travel, asset preservation update, Denny program interlocal agreement, and the transportation contract. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saltzman. We'll now move to section 16.0. We are not planning to have an executive or closed session after this meeting. We'll now move to section 17.0, which is adjournment. Hearing no further items come forward to the board, this concludes the business section. To the Board of Directors, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jamie.